Hello everybody, today we're going to be going over Tropical Storm Isaias, which has recently formed in the Caribbean, and it's going to be moving throughout parts of the Northern Caribbean, moving throughout the Bahamas, and now the models have trended much further to the east, looking at an east coast impact anywhere from Florida to about the northeast. We're going to be going over that in today's video, including my personal cone of uncertainty track forecast, as well as my personal intensity forecast at the end of the video, so make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end. So here's the current National Weather Service page, and we do have some heat advisories and excessive heat warnings scattered throughout parts of the northwest. We have some excessive heat warnings, heat advisories, and excessive heat watches in effect for the southwest as well. We have a stalling low pressure system front that's currently over the central part of the country. That's dumping rain throughout parts of the really the center of the country, and that'll be moving eastward as time goes on, and that'll eventually be aiming at parts of the northeast and mid-Atlantic, which could potentially get 5 to 7 inches of rain out of this one front that's just going to stall throughout this area. And then you're going to have Isaias, which is just going to roll up the east coast and potentially dump some more rain throughout that area. So we really have a big flooding problem and issue with Isaias, and also the stalling front that's going to move throughout this region. So we're going to be going over that in today's video. We're going to look at your forecasted rainfall for this, because we could definitely have some serious flooding issues with this storm. Now, here is the current National Hurricane Center page. We actually have a disturbance off to your right-hand side of the screen. We have a 20% chance of developing within the next 48 hours and the next in the next 5 days. We have Isaias right here, which is south and east of the Dominican Republic, and that will be moving kind of in between Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, moving throughout the Bahamas and then into Florida, and then from there, that's when the cone really widens and there's a lot more potential for what could potentially happen. Now, here is the Eastern Pacific, and we have another disturbance, a very low chance of developing, 20% within the next 48 hours, 20% within the next 5 days as well. Now, here is currently where your low pressure system is. It's at about 18 degrees north by about 69 degrees west or so, and it also has sustained winds of about 15 knots with gusts up to 60 knots. So you almost have hurricane force wind gusts with the storm by now. Now, I'm not going to read out all these key messages, but if you want to, you can pause the video right here, or you can go to hurricanes.gov and go read them on their website, which is where I got them from. So you can pause the video right here if you are interested in reading those. Now, here is the current cone of uncertainty forecast. This is not my cone of uncertainty. This is the official National Hurricane Center's cone of uncertainty. They have this staying as a tropical storm all the way until it hits Virginia at least. And I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of these plots here do become hurricanes, especially as you get to about this one near Georgia, and also as it heads up to South and North Carolina. This is where it really has the greatest potential within this region of becoming a hurricane potentially. Now, also, something to note, over the southern and central Bahamas, as well as parts of Hispaniola and also parts of Puerto Rico, we do have tropical storm warnings in effect. We have tropical storm watches in that yellow region for the northern Bahamas, and then we have some tropical storm force wind speeds extending very far to the north of this system, and it's a very broad system with very, very strong winds, and it's over a very broad area. So you see, this is about a 200 mile wide wind field, so that is a very, very large area of tropical storm winds in that yellow region. Now, here is the past wind field of the storm, and all these yellow shaded regions are areas that saw tropical storm force wind speeds, and you see over the northern Lesser Antilles and also throughout parts of Puerto Rico and the eastern Dominican Republic, we do have or we did see some tropical storm wind speeds. Now, let's start talking about some of your model guidance and what they are showing for this storm. Now, we do have most of these models. If you remember yesterday, all of these models were either over Florida, the western half of Florida, or within this region right here. And now they've all trended basically to where they were before, before they had all this drastic shift further to the west, and now they're going back to what we were expecting pretty much at the beginning when I first started talking about the storm. It's been a roller coaster ride with these models, and they've been very, very inconsistent with the storm recently, and that's mainly, I think they're going to get a lot more consistent as we start now, just because they found a defined center with aircraft recon. It's now officially named as a tropical storm, and they're inputting all that data into the models, and that'll really help the models pick out what they think the storm will really do, and really it's going to give them a good idea. And it's a good thing to see that we have a fairly decent consensus that somewhere within this region is where this storm is going to track. Somewhere across the eastern seaboard is where this looks to track currently. Now, here are your American ensemble models, and most of these have pretty much the same story. Now, something that's a little bit weird is the Canadian ensemble models. They are actually showing this. A couple of these models, a few of these models bring this up the East Coast, but the majority of these models staying west of Florida and moving into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, I always say the Canadian model and the Canadian ensemble models aren't really the most reliable models, and I really wouldn't trust these models, but it is definitely something that we have to look at. We really should look at every single model that we can get our hands on, but that doesn't mean that we should trust every single model. Just because this is showing west of Florida, I really would I would put more confidence into the GEFS models and also the main models in getting this correct than the Canadian ensemble models. I think once the Canadian ensemble models do their next run, it'll probably be even further to the east than this one is, or than this run of the models is. Now here's your European ensemble model guidance, and they are also running this up the east coast from about Florida, moving, curving, and hitting parts of the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and then curving around a high pressure system, which is located right around here, and it's going to be curving right around it and moving out to sea. The question really is, it looks fairly likely that parts of the southeast coast will at least get some rainfall out of this. The most likely impact would be with the Outer Banks of North Carolina and also for parts of the Caribbean, but the real question is, does this high pressure system move further to the north? So let's, for example, if this high pressure system moves further to the north and stays right around here, this system can kind of move up the east coast, and that would bring more direct impacts. Luckily, if it's looking like this is going to stay further to the south, that would make it curve, slightly touch parts of North Carolina, and then move out, and this would be far enough out to sea where it would still not drastically impact parts of the east coast. Potentially it could bring some rainfall, but it shouldn't be anything that's too impactful. Now, here is your forecasted wind speeds from the National Hurricane Center, and they are bringing this also with the timing of the most likely arrival time of those wind speeds. And you see, it's going to start impacting parts of the Bahamas by about Thursday night, and then by Friday night, it's starting to exit the Bahamas. By Saturday morning, it's starting to impact parts of Florida, and then as you get into Sunday night, into Monday morning, that's when it's starting to impact parts of the Carolinas with those tropical storm force wind speeds. And you see, we have a decent chance of seeing those. We have about a 50 to about 70% chance of those. And over parts of near Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, we have about a 90 to 100% chance of seeing them. In fact, you are already seeing them, and it's currently ongoing. Now, here is your current 58 mile per hour wind speed probabilities, and you see we have near 100% right next to the center of the low pressure system. But as it moves further to the north, you have about a 20 to 30% chance of that occurring. I would bring this up a little bit. I think it'll be closer to 50 to 60% chance of that occurring. And then here is your hurricane force wind speed probabilities, and they have about a 5 to 10% chance of that. Again, I think this is a bit low, but this is what the National Hurricane Center usually does. They kind of underestimate it just in case something changes in the models. As they get more certainty, that's when they start to raise the probability that it'll happen. And they have that for parts of the northern Bahamas. Now, here is your intensity guidance from these models, and they are showing this. All the models have that as a tropical storm. Currently, it is a tropical storm, and most of these models have it kind of staying flat and not really increasing or decreasing the wind speeds all throughout the 168 hour time frame, the 7-day time frame. Now, some of these models have it strengthening off the coast of the Carolinas, really, and that's when some of these models start to ramp up the wind speed with with this storm. Now, some of these models have it to a category 1, a category 2. One of these models even has it to a category 3, and I think that's a little bit overboard. And you'll see in my intensity forecast how I think this will really play out. Now, here are some of your ingredients that you're going to need to have this storm. First of all, let's look at your sea surface temperatures. We have generally above average sea surface temperatures all throughout the track of this storm, and especially as you get into the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, you have well above average sea surface temperatures. Now, your system is right around here, and if we're looking at the forecasted track, which would be something like this, you see it's moving all throughout very, very warm waters, all throughout the parts of the Atlantic that this is going to be tracking through. Just off the East Coast, it's pretty much very, very warm sea surface temperatures, and that'll really help support and grow this type of system. Now, here is your actual temperatures, and what you want to see is those temperatures in those yellows, the oranges, and the reds for tropical development. That's indicating that you have 80-degree Fahrenheit plus temperatures, which would support a hurricane and a tropical storm. So once you get above 80-degree Fahrenheit, that's when it's really when you're really able to support a tropical storm. And you do see we have that all the way up to parts of New Jersey by this point. So until it hits about New Jersey and then basically eastward from there, that's when you're gonna still be able to support a tropical storm or a hurricane. And even by that point, areas in New England and off the coast of Southeast Canada still in very above average sea surface temperatures that are between about 70 and 80 degree Fahrenheit, which can still support a tropical storm. Maybe not grow a tropical storm, but it can still support the tropical storm. So definitely very, very favorable conditions for this area. The only thing that's going to be not so favorable is the very tall mountains throughout parts of Hispaniola. That is really, it looks like the system will move over to that region. So as it moves over to that region, it is going to be a fairly hard, it's going to have a very hard time trying to move over that area, but it does look like it's going to re-strengthen as it moves over the Bahamas, over that very, very warm water. Now, here are your predicted rainfall totals from the Weather Prediction Center over the next 7 days. And you do see that we have 5 to 7 inch rainfalls over the projected track, which you can kind of outline here over the heaviest rains, which is right around here. This is where the heaviest track is for the for the Weather Prediction Center. And they actually have little pockets of 5 to 7 inch rainfall totals, 7 to 10 inch rainfall totals. So if this is the rainfall totals for this track. So if this track were to move, you could definitely see on land potentially 4 or 5 inches of rain. That track would have to move onto land for that to happen. But you do see what this stalled front is doing. It's bringing 4 to about 7 inches of rainfall to parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, and if this storm does move throughout that region, it will unfortunately bring some flash flooding. You're going to already have saturated soil, and that is definitely not going to be a good combination. Luckily, right now it's looking like it's going to move offshore, but these models have been so uncertain that we really don't know too much on what's going to happen currently. Now, here is the projected rainfall from the European ensemble models, and they are also bringing this offshore, and this is a collection of about 40 models, and they are bringing this offshore. You can tell right here where the storm track would be with the storm. Now, they're bringing this to about 4 to 5 inches of rainfall. I think it should be probably a little bit higher because you will have very intense rains with this storm. Now, here is my personal forecast. This is only within the next 5 days, so from today all the way until August 3rd, this is when this forecast is valid for, and I update this every single day that we do get new updates. So the low pressure system, again, is just south and east of the Dominican Republic right now. It does look like it's going to track over the Dominican Republic, east of Cuba, or maybe clipping parts of eastern Cuba, much of the Bahamas in that cone of uncertainty, and it looks like it's going to ride up the east coast, and potentially, I don't want to leave out the possibility that this stays on land. So you do see that I did outline that area, but right now it's looking like it'll stay offshore, and that's why, again, I have it's a very wide range for this storm, just because of how uncertain the models are. I don't want to leave out the possibility that this just goes throughout and kind of moves on the western flank of this cone of uncertainty, because some of the models are doing that. But right now, I would say this is really the most likely area where the storm will develop right now. That is looking like the most likely area. Not saying that it will be the area. It's just looking very, very likely at this time, and I'll be bringing you guys more updates as we get more information on the storm. Now, here is my intensity forecast for the storm. I do think it will be a weak Category 1, most likely before it hits South and North Carolina, and then once it hits that region, that's when it's going to really weaken as it starts to head into the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast to most likely a weak tropical storm within the 72 to 120 hour time frame. Now, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.